When I tell people I left my fancy urban author life to live in a mostly off-grid shed alone in the wilderness, they always have 3 questions. Well, they usually have a lot more than that, mostly about hygiene, but these 3 get to the heart of it, how it feels to be a feral hermit. It starts with the big one. Why did I do this? Why did I leave the city and all its pleasures to live alone on a wind-blasted peak? Some of that decision was practical, saving money, getting more work done, but I want to focus on the other side of it, the feelings. I used to be a big believer in cities. I loved the grand civic endeavor, the idea of people gathering by the thousands to build something together, to cultivate art and culture, to transcend our primitive origins and create a shining citadel of progress that would push the species forward toward the stars. Basically, I used to be young. I used to see life as a video game, and the goal was to grind experience and level up, become stronger and cooler and more interesting, and not just for myself, but for humanity, to gather resources and research new technologies that would advance mankind to the next civilization tier, Bronze Age, Space Age, and beyond. So, it was vital that I should always be doing a lot. I needed to be going, seeing, learning. I needed money so I could travel, so I could walk every city, try every restaurant, ponder every museum. I needed to always be meeting people so I could make connections and absorb perspectives and have sex. I needed to live, laugh, love. And then, year after year, that frantic hunger started to fade. Or maybe I sated it. I did a lot of travel. I learned a lot of lessons. I had a lot of sex. And I tried to advance humanity in all those youthful ways. I went to protests, I raised awareness, I participated in the discourse. I wrote novels about fighting injustice and believing in the future, and I tried to cram big, transcendent ideas into my silly little zombie romance series. And while I never lost that push toward transcendence, I started to feel it in a smaller way. A more private, individual journey that didn't require me to be installed into the superstructure of humanity, roaring to gain an inch like one little thruster in our interstellar arc ship. I found myself wanting to stay home and enjoy simple pleasures, cooking food, watching movies, reading, writing, thinking. I started declining more invitations out, diving deeper into my inner worlds while the city hooted and howled outside. And I ran away a lot. When the noise was too much, I'd hop in my van and take long solo road trips just to soak up that haunting highway scenery, the abandoned, the empty, the alone. I'd rent cabins and hole up for a few days to clear my head and find my focus, purge the party from my system so I could find the path back to my art. And then one day it just hit me. This is all backwards. Why am I paying exorbitant fees for access to this urban noise, then paying again for the privilege of escaping it? I should flip that around. I should live in the escape and take vacations to the noise on the rare occasions I find myself wanting it. So here I am, living in the escape. My home is a 130 square foot shed on 20 acres of wilderness in central Washington. My property is surrounded by huge blocks of public land, with only one neighbor within shouting distance. The landscape feels infinite. Vast plains and distant hills under an immense dome of sky that's blue 300 days a year. It was this openness that pulled me to this region. Before this, I lived my whole life in western Washington, surrounded by thick forests under a claustrophobic sky that clears up half as often. I craved the wide open expanse. It's a little ironic that I ended up in such a ridiculously cramped home while living in such huge country. But I fill myself with space every time I go outside, stretching my lungs and limbs as far as they can go. It really is emptiness that I came out here to pursue. After all those years inflating myself with as much knowledge and experience as I could find, I feel a deep need to exhale, to stop moving. I want fewer things to happen, fewer knocks on the door, fewer dots on the calendar, fewer intrusions into my quiet little hobbies, and the gentle flow of my thoughts. But okay, let's get this part out of the way. There is a lot of annoying shit in the wilderness life. I spent the whole first year in construction mode, building out the shed's interior, building my beautiful outhouse, and there's still a lot of work to be done. Next on the list, and long overdue, put siding on the damn house. I do get some satisfaction from this kind of work, but it's not what I'm here to do, and I would like it to end eventually. It will end eventually, right? I'm an hour away from hardware, groceries, laundry, everything. So I've had to get used to not having what I need when I need it. Right now, I'm pretty much out of food, but I have to wait a few days to go shopping so I can combine the trip with the trash dump and the mail pickup. Everything is a hassle. On top of that, my desire for a more functional home has dragged me into high-stakes freelance writing with all its team meetings and deadlines, which makes those quiet little hobbies feel pretty far away. Very surreal to be neck-deep in corporate life while living in a shed in the wilderness. I'm trying to enjoy the stimulation of these new challenges, but once I've built the bankroll to buy any house with a bathroom, I intend to withdraw back to the simple life I crave. Because I've decided I don't need to be rich. I don't need to hustle and grind for a never-ending escalation of status. I'm really almost okay already. I have no rent or mortgage, no debt, and this life is very cheap. There are no fancy bars or restaurants to tempt me. I shop at Walmart, I make all my own food, and eventually I'll start growing it. I know I can scrape together a living from the sum of all my hobbies, this YouTube channel, your generous support on Patreon, and whatever's left of the publishing industry. Buying a home in 2024 is a financial extinction event that requires some emergency measures, like actual employment. But a normal, everyday life as a simple man in the wilderness, that I can manage on my own. Someone asked me what my fantasy life would look like. Before I had time to overthink it, I answered, empty space. In a culture that holds achievement above all, where your value as a person comes from how much stuff you do, it can be embarrassing to admit that I kinda just want to do nothing. My fantasy life is to have nothing much going on and for that to be okay. Because of course, it wouldn't really be nothing. I love work. What I want is the freedom to do the work that I love at my own speed, with time for rest, with nothing and no one pushing me. As far as fantasies go, it doesn't seem that extravagant. It was impossible for me in the city, where there's always something pushing you, but out here on the edge of reality, where each day gets formed out of the mist of raw possibility, who knows? Of course, the question I get more than any other,
don't you get lonely?
This is the part that blows everyone's minds. How can a 41-year-old single man live alone, hours away from any nightlife, with no church or sports or workplace, no social hubs or dating pools of any kind, and still be happy? Funny enough, this was the easiest part for me. It was half the reason I wanted to get out of the city in the first place. People are exhausting. The vast majority of humans are creatures of programming, incapable of meaningful interactions, which could still be lovable if it made them honest and earnest like animals. But humans somehow manage to be the worst of both worlds, too dumb to be interesting, but just smart enough to be fake. No, I can't say I miss my social life. After decades in the city, I had accumulated a heavy crust of shallow acquaintances and joyless sex partners, like a whale covered in barnacles. It was a relief to scrape them off. I love my family, and I visit them often. I have a handful of high-quality friends who I see when I'm on the road, and the outpost receives refugees from the city now and then. So no, I'm not completely alone, but I'm a social camel. I can go a long time without people, and when the solitude finally starts getting to me, I make a journey back to the oasis, drink deep, fill the humps, and remember what it means to be part of the human shenanigan. Then I head back out to the desert, to my cat and the birds and the deer. Yes, I have tried being in love, as everyone should at least once. I think I did it 3 times. The first was like alcohol, wild and playful, but insubstantial. The second was like cocaine, potent and ecstatic, but consuming. The third was like Molly, warm and euphoric, but unsustainable. That's a lot of drugs, and they take their toll. If the party provides, I may partake again, but I truly don't mind if I don't. For me, love is a luxury, not a need. I'm fully at peace with dying alone. Bob can eat my body. So that about sums up this life. I don't love the hassles or the endless list of handy tasks, but I love everything else. I love the horizon, so far away and yet tantalizingly reachable, ready to be explored. I love all the life around me, the festival of creatures thriving in such an inhospitable land. And when those creatures settle down, I love the silence, so strong you can hear it. I love the emptiness. I love wandering alone through the chambers of my mind. Some have wondered how this fits into that. This video, this channel, these elaborate grabs for attention. If I'm really a feral hermit seeking transcendence alone in the wilderness, why would I join this gaudy content factory? Honestly, it's the same reason I write books or do any other art, because it feels good to share what's in me. I've never been great at being a person, building strong social bonds, or participating in society. Art is my way of connecting at a distance, little glowing threads that I send off across the mountains to find people. If you made it this far into this video, you must be one of those people. Thank you for keeping me company. It's just the right amount.